Welcome to Norse Code, the #1 podcast for your Minnesota Vikings. I'm your host and producer. My name is James Pagoshnik. Thank you guys so much for listening. And on the other end of the tin cannon string, we have our analyst and co-host. You know him from numerous blogs and podcasts around the internet, most notably from theathletic.com. He is Mr. Useful Human, Arif Hassan. Arif, what exactly did we learn from the Antonio Brown COVID card saga, other than if you're going to have a cover-up, always pay the people involved?
Always, pay everybody who knows for the services that they like. And this isn't even just like hush money. This is you owe them money, so just don't make them mad. Anybody who knows any dirty secrets, make sure they don't have a reason to be mad at you. That's it. And also, here's something I learned. Antonio Brown, is vaccinated. He got the fake vaccine card before then. And I could be wrong about that. I think I heard that from a couple of Bucks reporters. So that's all kind of screwing this up, right? We've got this fake vaccine card problem. Problem very much seems like an understatement, but also I don't know how to appropriately convey the weight of this thing, because it's not world ending, right? But it is extremely awful. So but the thing is, he screwed it up massively. Whether or not he actually got vaccinated, I don't know that 100%, but I'm pretty sure he figured out a fake card situation and then got actually vaccinated, which is amazing. Yeah. And that might be why he only got a 3-game punishment.
If you would have asked me who in the NFL is going to have a fake vaccine card scandal this year, Antonio Brown would have been in my top 5 easily. He might have been in the top 2.
For sure. Because the thing is, maybe your initial instinct is to think of guys who are hesitant or vocal or in the past have expressed a politics that correlates with not wanting to get the vaccine. But no, a lot of those people are fairly Kirk Cousins would never do a fake vaccine card. He just will tell you he's not vaccinated, right? Cole Beasley is going to tell you he's not vaccinated. He's going to explain why even, which is disconcerting. I guess Aaron Rodgers would, right? Because he's a liar. But at least he didn't screw the bag up with the protocols and not paying people for services rendered and stuff like that. So there is that. The defense, the thing that came out of the at least Kirk Cousins didn't lie to the media thing to make Aaron Rodgers look worse is funnier now that Aaron Rodgers looks a little bit better because he didn't lie to everybody. And that the people who were around him most often knew what his vaccination status was, and then therefore could take the appropriate precautions that they personally think are necessary, right? Antonio Brown didn't do that, and then he lied to the league.
The only thing I can think that he was thinking was that, well, now that I'm vaccinated, it doesn't matter if I pay anyway, because it's not like they're going to punish me for giving a fake card. I was always going to do it, or I've already done it, and so it doesn't matter anymore. Is the only reason I can think that he didn't pay these people. And
right.
You have to keep your dirt out of the press. That is what you do. So, yeah, darn shame. Couldn't have happened to a more predictable player.
Right, exactly. The threading the needle between not wanting to get vaccinated, which I guess he did, but also hiding that fact. Amazing.
Professional job. All right, well, welcome to this episode of Norse Code. Hope you guys are all doing well. We have a Lions game to preview, so we'll be doing that here in just a moment. Also, we have a mailbag to go over, but before we do all that, so I want to welcome you to this episode. If you enjoy the show and would like to support us financially, you can do so in a couple of different ways. You can go to patreon.com/NorseCode and donate there for $3.50 a month. You get things like bonus episodes, like the 80-minute bonus episode I uploaded yesterday for the Patreon people. Check that out. Plenty of great stuff, including an explanation as to why Dusty is an all-star. Amongst other things. So check that out. There's a bunch of great stuff there. including a car trip that, the maps try to kill us. So go ahead and check that out. Also, this weekend during the Lions game, we're doing a Patreon watch along on Zoom. Check it out. Again, patreon.com/Norse Code. $3.50 a month gives you access to all this stuff. So check us out. Looking forward to doing that on Sunday. Hopefully we got a bunch of people there. We'll be doing bingo stuff and all of that. So, and the free space is going to be the opponent scores points during the 2-minute drill. That's just how it's going to work. Also, you can go to paypal.me/Norse Code as well and donate to the show there. Or you can go to norsecode.threadless.com and pick up some great holiday gear featuring Arif's face on it in multiple ways. The Christmas socks, which I am looking at right now.
Incredible, right?
They are fantastic. They are both real and spectacular. So check out norsecode.threadless.com. Before we start, just have 2 people to thank real quick. Over on Patreon, I want to thank Corey Schultz. Thank you so much for subscribing over on Patreon and helping keep us ad-free. Also, a quick thank you to Brian Lopez over on PayPal, who has a quick note. He says, well-produced, lively, intelligent, voting with my dollars to keep it ad-free. Thank you, Brian, for that and your note. Thank you so much. And let's just get into it here. Let's go to our Lions preview that Arif taped earlier today with Jeremy Reissman of Pride of Detroit.
Cool. I'm here with Jeremy. Actually, I always forget how to pronounce your last name. Reissman?
We'll go with that.
Sure. No, tell me. It's not Reissman?
It is Reissman.
Oh, damn it. Okay. Jeremy Reissman.
I'm not a poison.
You can make him from, what is it? Some beans, right? Like the ricin is harvested off of beans. I don't know.
I'll have to watch that Breaking Bad episode again. I don't know.
Yeah. Here from Pride of Detroit to talk about the Detroit Lions, who the Vikings ostensibly play this weekend, according to rumor. We'll find out. I've been so out of keeping track of what the Vikings are up to because I've been so focused on what the Vikings have done that I just feel out of it. I'm like, yeah, I guess they play the Lions. Who knows? I found out when Jeremy messaged me to tell me that I was going to be on his podcast. And that he actually messaged me to tell me he was going to be on this podcast.
Yeah, I demanded it.
Is what happened. So then I was like, oh yeah, I guess they play the Lions, and then they must play the Steelers in like 2 days after that. So that sounds good. We're going to talk about the Lions and Jared Goff's stellar track record of games. I don't know how to even put it, of being in football games, and how great a coach Dan Campbell is, except for the winning thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love him, man. I can't get enough. I want him to succeed, but I also want the 0-16, 17-game season. So it's tough. I'm being pulled in 2 directions here. All right, man, how are you?
I'm almost right there with you, by the way.
Have you seen that Reddit post? The guy that a couple of weeks ago was like, "Yeah, I'll get a Matt Patricia face tattoo if the Lions go 0-16 this year."
Oh no!
Yeah, well,
I did not see that.
It was like, obviously it was like a, because there's 17 games, they're not going to finish 0-16 or something like that, right? And then
technically, I mean, yeah, monkey paw, all that.
Yep. Incredible. Now, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. As good as I can be, I think, for an 0-10-1 initial season under this regime.
Yeah. Hey, Jared Goff pulled ahead of 0.000 in the non-Sean McVay era, so he's got that going for him.
True.
So it's just up from here. It's a penny stock. Invest in the Lions. Now, let's talk about the Lions. So since week 5, how have your thoughts on Jared Goff evolved?
None, I think, is probably the best way to put that. I guess he's been a little less turnover prone, but I think that's mostly by design. Obviously, like, the biggest change in his play has really come that he's not getting plays from Anthony Lynn anymore. 3 weeks ago, Dan Campbell out of the bye all of a sudden said, "Hey, I want to be the one to talk to Jared Goff. I want to be the one that's in his ear until 15 seconds left on the play clock," or whatever it is. And they've really insulated him since. And you can tell just by the passing numbers in terms of passing attempts and certain passing yards. They're just not throwing the ball very much at all anymore. They're becoming a very run heavy team, and it's led to less turnovers. It's led to closer games, but obviously hasn't led to a win yet. So I'm not sure it was worth it.
So I mentioned Aiden Hutchinson on your podcast, and one of the guys on Twitch was like, "Oh God, no, we can't do that to him." Taking into account how much you personally care about the players, as well as how much you want the Lions to improve, who do you want the Lions to draft?
I mean, I'm usually the biggest procrastinator when it comes to draft research, but I certainly was watching that Michigan-Ohio State game intently, and yeah, this team needs an elite pass rusher. They have for a long time. They've never really put a big investment into a pure pass rusher. I mean, obviously they spend a lot on a guy like Trey Flowers, but the last time they drafted a guy like that was Ezekiel Ansah, and that didn't work out for a myriad of reasons. So Aiden Hutchinson, yeah, he's my guy. Like, I'm not worried about ruining him or lionizing him. He doesn't seem like the type that would ever get that way anyways. And so, I mean, him and Thibodeau toss up for me right now. I'm happy with either. I think those kind of guys are game changers on your defense. And while the Lions offense is really the one holding them down right now, I think part of that is just by luck of playing Mason Rudolph and Baker Mayfield and just not good quarterback play over the past few weeks. So I think we might see the defense struggle a little bit this week, and Aiden Hutchinson would probably help a lot if we could just rent him for a week.
Just rent him, yeah. Well, I've never heard lionizing used in that very specific meaning. That's incredible. All right, so we talked a little bit about the run game and how they've been leaning more on the run game, how they want to use that a little bit more to insulate Jared Goff, but it sounds like we won't have DeAndre Swift. So what is the run game shaping up from a ball carrier perspective?
Well, I honestly, I don't think the game plan is going to change much. Everything they say seems to suggest that it's going to be a heavy Jamal Williams day, and he's ran the ball pretty well. He started a lot of these games, and so I don't think it'll be that much of a change of pace for him, other than the fact that he won't have those drives where DeAndre Swift comes and catches 10 passes and runs 4 times. So I think we'll get a heavy dose of him, but as I was saying on my podcast, I do think they're going to bring in. I don't think they ever really like to do a workhorse thing. They say they like to ride the hot hand, but Jamar Jefferson, the 7th round rookie, I think he's going to get some opportunities, and they really like Godwin Igwebuike, who was playing safety last year. They noticed guys really freaking fast, and so they moved him to running back. Both those guys have only carried it less than 10 times this year, but both I think are averaging over 8 yards a carry. They both had a few explosive plays, so I wouldn't be surprised to see either or both of those guys get a handful of carries as long as the game stays close.
Yeah, fair enough. You have to choose between the two. Who would you rather?
Well, I'm more interested, I think, in Jamar, just because he's a little more fresh. I think he's had fewer carries this year, and I think there was a lot of hope for him. I think he's actually a really good fit in how he reads. He's more of a north-south runner, and that's why Jamal Williams really has seen more success on the ground than a guy like DeAndre Swift this year. Is the lines are opening up a lot of holes, but the one thing that screws that up is its hesitation, and Jamar is not a guy to hesitate, and he's not a breakaway speed type of guy, but he is a guy that can pick up 6 or 7 consistently as long as the hole's there.
All right, moving on to another position, I feel like there's not been a bunch of discussion about tight ends this year, except of course on tight end day. Jesus Christ. And so we don't really get much of a sense about how people feel about, tight ends around the league. So we haven't heard much about Noah Fant. We haven't even heard that much about like Darren Waller. There's been some discussion about Travis Kelce. Obviously, with George Kittle back, we talk about him. And if there's one guy that would have already been kind of swept under the rug in these conversations, and is certainly now being swept under the rug, now that that's not a huge conversation, is TJ Hawkinson. Yeah. But he's got, over 500 yards this year. He's averaging like 50 yards a game or something like that. So how do you feel he's been performing, kind of given that Jared Goff is his quarterback?
Well, I mean, and it's not only that, it's that he has the surrounding cast that he does in terms of wide receivers, and the fact that every defense knows that Hawkinson was Goff's favorite target in preseason, in training camp, and through the first 8 weeks of the season. And so teams are very actively trying to just take TJ Hawkinson away, and it's mostly working, which was kind of a big question I had going into the offseason. Like, can he be that guy that it doesn't matter? Everyone knows he's the best weapon on the field. Can he elevate his game to doesn't matter, you still can't guard me? And so far the answer has kind of been no. He's not playing bad per se, but he's also not the well-rounded tight end that I think a lot of people thought he would be coming out of Iowa. He's not a particularly good run blocker. But he still is,
because he only run blocked for like the first 3 years at Iowa.
Right, exactly. And that's the tape on like any guy from Iowa, right? That's why Kittle is so good at everything, but he's not even in the league that Kittle is in terms of pass blocking, run blocking, all of that. But he still is a good receiver. It's just literally, I mean, he's just getting blanket coverage everywhere he goes on the field. And they've tried to get creative, putting him in the backfield, putting him out wide, putting him in line. Nothing seems to really get him open that often, but he's still got a solid set of hands. He got open on a play on Thanksgiving, so maybe that's coming back. But I think with just so few options in the receiving game outside of him, and now with DeAndre Swift gone as well, like that can't help him at all. I think maybe the only saving grace is maybe the emergence of someone like Josh Reynolds, but in general, I think Hawkinson's just going to have a hard time drawing tension away from him, and that's going to hurt his numbers to a point where I don't think he reached the level where a lot of people thought he might in his what is this, year 3 for him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and most players, contrary to expectations, and most positions do break out, or at least you get a good sense of who they are in year 2. That's not true for tight end. You tend to get a better idea of who they are in year 3 because of how difficult the position is. So,
right.
I mean, he's probably going to improve, but at this point, the profile of who he is probably who he is. And I mean, you feel comfortable with that, right?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, if you want to compare it to his draft position, yeah, he's probably not going to be the eighth best player in his draft class, but he's a very good tight end, a good weapon, and a weaponless team right now. So he's a valuable guy to have right now.
Yeah. So you talked about the receiving weapons. When I was on your podcast, I kind of briefly rattled off a list of receivers. It turns out I only had one of them correct. So who is playing receiver for the Detroit Lions?
The aforementioned Josh Reynolds, acquired 3 weeks or so off of waivers. Has that?
So with Reynolds, he demanded a trade and nobody bit, and so he was just waived. Was that what happened?
I believe that's what happened. Yeah, essentially.
Wow.
And yeah. And he was just looking for opportunity, right? Like he wasn't getting it where he was. And so he comes to Detroit where there's no wide receivers. You know, the number one guy going into the season was Tyrell Williams. He suffers a concussion in week 1 and was released a few weeks ago because he never got out of that concussion protocol. And so they released him with an injury settlement. The other guy they planned on being their number 2 was Brashad Perriman, who I don't even know if he's in the NFL at the moment, but he didn't make it out of training camp essentially. And so they've just kind of been floundering through names. And so right now, Josh Reynolds is essentially your number 1 guy. Khalif Raymond, who's basically a slot/kick returner, is your second outside receiver. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is your slot. And then they've got a rotating cast of guys behind them who get a fair amount of playing time. I think this week, the guy you're going to see the most outside of those top 3 is Trinity Benson, formerly of the Browns. Lions traded for him right at the beginning of the season. And then you got a guy named Kaderil Hodge, who I don't really need to go into at all.
I believe I mentioned this the last time that you were on, which was obviously the last Lions game. But Khalif Raymond's career high in receiving was against the Vikings. So
yeah,
going to put that out there into the universe.
He's got a 100-yard game this season. So he eclipsed that now.
The Rams?
It was the Rams, yeah.
The Stafford Goff
vengeance game?
Yeah, that seems wrong, though. I feel like both of them wanted to move.
Yeah. Yes. So both of them, I think, were beyond relieved when that game was over.
Yeah, right. So more of a awkward reunion game, like an awkward family reunion. Yeah. So, so Khalif Raymond benefited from the tension in the atmosphere and got 115 yards.
They just forgot about him. Every single camera was on the quarterbacks, and so he just leaked out and no one saw him.
And then Trinity Benson, who's burned a number of Vikings corners in joint practices and in the preseason, might be available. I don't know, man. This is like one of those I'd be scared if they had a quarterback, even though these guys don't have names. So it's like three really good athletes, right? Daryl Hodge, which you don't have to talk about, Trinity Benson, Khalif Raymond, and then like a slow route runner, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and kind of the same profile in Josh Reynolds.
Yeah, Reynolds has got a little quickness to him, but I think that was the blueprint, is to get a lot of speed, because the idea is obviously get some separation there, and that's what Jared Goff needs. He needs a wide open read that no one could possibly miss. But it just, I mean, they're not as technically sound to really utilize that speed in a way that's going to help Jared Goff. So I don't know, like they seem to still talk very highly of Trinity Benson, and
why did they get rid of Marvin Hall? That's my only like why. I'm still on that.
Yeah, that's a fair question, and maybe I guess the easy answer might be that he just didn't want to stay through a rebuild. Who knows? But
yeah, he has options. Yeah.
It's not just on them. So yeah, I mean, I don't really have a good answer for that, because it does seem like that kind of fit exactly what they were looking for. And you know, for a year and a half or 2 years here in Detroit, like he was their big play guy, and they certainly could use a guy like that right now.
All right. So let's talk about the offensive line. So I admittedly have not watched enough Lions games to know kind of what the narrative of the offensive line is. Is Penei Sewell back at the right tackle and Taylor Decker's at left tackle?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
And he's been killing it at right tackle, much to the chagrin of all the people who called the Lions idiots for putting him there in the first place.
Yeah, take that, Jeff Schwartz.
A little bit.
Yeah. You can't have them switch sides. Tyron Smith switch side. It's fine.
Right. Well, and plus, I mean, this was the best tackle in the draft, a guy that most people thought was a top 5 talent in a pretty darn good draft class, or at least thought of draft class. And so if your guy can't, if there's a guy that can do it, it's that kind of guy. And
yeah,
you know, he went through a lot of lumps early in the season, especially in the preseason, and everyone was pointing their "told you so" fingers out. But
I mean, they were doing the same with Jamar Chase, right? And,
of course, yeah. It turns
doing all right.
It turns out you can't judge a rookie by the first month of their NFL careers,
or their preseason, Shockingly, hope for Kellen Mond. Okay, but so that interior, so it's still Jonah Jackson.
Yep.
Who is playing center? Who is playing guard? I am unfamiliar with. I mean, I've heard the name Tommy Kramer.
Yeah,
but you know he's a former Vikings quarterback, not a current guard for the Lions.
Well, this week back at right guard, it should be Halapuli Vaitai, and I always love saying the full name.
You do not want to say Big D. Okay.
No, I have to show it off, and I always give this gift, and I may have already given it to you. The easy way to say his name perfectly for the rest.
Vaitai? I don't need it.
Halapuli Vaitai. The best way to say it correctly, and you'll never say it wrong, is to sing it to Play That Funky Music, White Boy. I think I've told you this before.
You've not. That's incredible. Okay. And now everyone knows. That's fantastic.
Yep. Do you want me to do it?
Yeah. What?
Okay. I mean, I wanted to give the listeners maybe the chance to just do it in their head for a second, so they can do it. But no, it's Halapuli Vaitai.
Oh, wow. That matches up. That's really good.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I mean, your singing voice, whatever. But I don't get paid for that. Really good. Yeah, that trick is good.
It's very good. So former tackle for the Eagles, played in the Super Bowl. He's been actually playing much better at guard.
Played in the Super Bowl. How did he play in the Super Bowl, Jeremy?
They won. That's how good he played.
Touche.
Yeah. Left tackle wins. Hashtag left tackle wins. But no, he's a good run blocker. I would say he's not great as a pass protector, which I think is probably why he's better inside than outside. Coming off a concussion, so you can't be too sure that he's going to play, but he's been a full participant in practice all week, so probably going to play. And then center is a guy named Evan Brown, who has actually been playing quite well for Frank Ragnow, who was coming off an all-pro season. But not at that level. So,
but not Frank Ragnow, yeah.
He's not Frank Ragnow, but I think he's as good as you could have expected out of a guy who basically had never had an NFL start, still kind of learning the position and all that sort of stuff. So, it's a patchwork offensive line, just by the nature of all the injuries that they've gone through all season, but it does seem like they're kind of settling in to what they have right now. And, the tackle play has been pretty darn good. Decker's still kind of working his way back after, I think this is going to be game 3 or 4 for him of the season after having finger surgery. Jonah Jackson, I would say is maybe an average guy, but making some of the jumps that you were hoping he'd make in year 2. And then, like I said, Sewell's kind of just slid in and been that dude, basically playing at a top 5 tackle level for the last 4 or 5 weeks or so. So, finally becoming that guy that the Lions drafted.
Cool. Wow, we went through that offense real quick. So let's talk about, unless there's something else you wanted to mention, like maybe you had like a great Jason Kabinda nugget.
I could. He's given himself that superback novelty name where he's basically playing everywhere, and that's mostly true. He had a 20-yard run, which was pretty cool for a fullback. Yeah. But then he also did not convert a 4th and 1 on that same day, so it was kind of like
he used to be a linebacker, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So he's definitely one of those guys where he breaks off that run and you're like, man, I told you they should have given him the chance. Then when he doesn't convert the 4th and 1, you're like, yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you play a linebacker or a fullback.
Yep, exactly.
Perfect. I love those players.
Yep.
Like Jerick McKinnon, who I mentioned briefly on the other podcast. When he finally gets to throw the ball after 2 years of not being able to throw the ball and playing quarterback at Georgia Southern. Oh, yeah, I told you could do it. Yeah, look at that. 40 yards. I mean, he's a quarterback. Throws an interception. I mean, they drafted him at running back for a reason. All right, defense. So we've got nose tackle Michael Brockers playing edge defender. Nose tackle Ella McNeil playing nose tackle, right? Nose tackle Nicholas Williams playing defensive tackle.
Yeah.
And nose tackle John Panasini backing them up. And then 3 technique. Hey, Levi and Wuzurike.
Mm-hmm.
Like a run defending 3 technique, though.
Yeah, I mean, he's got some burst to him. He's supposed to bring some pass rush. He just really hasn't shown it yet too much. The season got his first sack of the year last week. I think he's maybe progressing slower than the Lions had hoped, but he really is supposed to be a pass rusher. He is very twitchy. I mean, he showed it at Washington, just hasn't translated to his rookie season quite yet, but I think the idea is for him to be more of a pass rusher than a run defender once he gets it all together.
So, and then when you throw in like Trey Flowers, who's I guess known for more his run defending, although he's an effective pass rusher. I mean, the character of what this unit is intended to be is fairly obvious. Do they live up to that?
No. I mean, I guess maybe the more accurate answer is at times, because, they gave up 260, 70, 80, whatever yards to the Eagles in 1 week. They're not a particularly good tackling team. So when you bulk up and you try to stop the run and you let your linebackers run free and your linebackers are Alex Anzalone, who leads all linebackers in missed tackles, well, maybe the plan is faulty at that point, because you're not paying attention to your personnel. But I mean, I think the interior of the defensive line is getting better, and I think that part of the defense might be working in terms of what they want to do in terms of stopping the run. The problem is the edges and the second level. The edges are just not good right now. Trey Flowers has missed 2 or 3 straight games. It doesn't look like he's trending towards playing this week. So you're left with basically 3 guys who, I mean, you were talking about this with the Vikings edge guys. I'm not sure how many of these guys you've heard of, or at least you've heard of in the past 3 years. Like Charles Harris is probably their best edge defender right now.
I remember first round pick Charles Harris.
Right, but you probably haven't heard from him in about 2 years. Exactly. Julian Okwara, second round pick guy who's really, basically missed his entire rookie season. So this kind of feels like a second rookie season for him. And then Austin Bryant, if you remember him from Clemson, I think he was a fourth round pick.
Oh, yeah. Now that you mentioned Clemson, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not a good sign.
Yeah, no, he's essentially.
So wait, which Okwara is the other Okwara? Is it the one that's currently playing?
Yes, because Romeo Okwara had 10 sacks last season, and he was looking for another big step this year, and tore his Achilles back in week 2, I want to say, or actually it was a little bit later, that maybe 3 or 4. So Julian is the other Okwara, which I'm sure he'd love for you to refer to him as that. Yeah, but he.
If I was Brian O'Neill, that's all I'd call him.
So I mean, they're very. All to say is they're very vulnerable on the edges, both in terms of not getting a pass rush there and not setting the edge in the run game. They're not particularly good at either one right now, and that's where they've really been beaten mostly by these teams. And luckily, the Bears are poorly coached, so they didn't figure that out last week, but other teams have.
Cool. Well, the Vikings can't run to the edge with Alexander Madison. Let's see if they actually put Kenny Wango on the field and see what happens. We're both very pessimistic about the teams, but the Vikings were like good, so it's like very weird to have these conversations.
Yeah, because I'm in the right.
Yeah. The worst is that the Lions are close, right?
Yeah.
Like if that's like, because if they were just like, if they were, what was it, 2013 Jacksonville bad or 2008 Lions bad or
sure.
What was the 2016 Browns team? Whatever. If they were like as bad as a lot of these other winless teams or teams that just like consistently get blown out of the water, it'd be so much easier. But like they're I think like 3 close games and a tie, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
I would say 4, maybe even more than that. You got the Baltimore game, the 66-yarder. You got the first Vikings games. You got the crazy game in Los Angeles where they pull out 3 trick plays and are winning in the fourth quarter of that game. Then
the Green Bay game,
the Green Bay game where they were leading at halftime, and then these last 3 have just been wild, ugly, horrible games on display. But they've basically had a chance to win all of them. They had a game-winning field goal attempt in overtime against Pittsburgh that turned into a tie. And the only reason
who was the kicker of that, by the way?
Ryan Santoso, and he, former punter, he was only in that game because the starting kicker, who really was the third kicker that they've already been through, suffered an injury midweek. So midweek addition kicker turns out not to work. He gets let go the next week. And now they're balancing kickers. They have one on the active roster, one on the practice squad.
Well, we'll talk about that. So,
okay, yeah, I'll save that.
You guys,
that's an adventure
portion. Yeah.
Yeah.
But former University of Minnesota graduate. I guess he's a current graduate. You know what I mean? University of Minnesota alum Ryan Santoso did not get it home. I believe he won the Holder of the Year award, which was an award he made up.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then awarded to himself in college. I love him. It sucks that
he's a good guy, though.
Yeah.
He donated $100 to a charity thing we were doing, so I don't want to trash talk him too much. But that actually, if that's a real thing, I'm kind of fascinated now.
He's great, yeah. But yeah, we skipped over the secondary real quick, and I think if you're a Vikings fan, you don't want to skip over the secondary.
True.
So Amano Wariwarie, God, I was so close. I didn't get it, but close enough. Has been playing fairly well for the past couple of games, right?
Yes, I guess. I mean, he played well in Chicago. I will give him that. He had an interception, or a really nice interception, and almost had another one if Jesse James hadn't tried to tear his helmet off while he was intercepting the ball. But he's got 5 interceptions on the season, and 4 of them were, and by his admission too, were right place, right time, where he was either out of position and the ball just landed in his hands, or the ball was tipped and he happened to dive and get it. Other than that, he's been okay, I guess. I would say below average. He's just, it really feels, we talked to him today actually, and it was interesting what he said, because, under Matt Patricia, everyone was just playing man, and that's all the assignment they were given. They're like, just beat the guy in front of you. Don't worry about anything else that's happening on the field. Beat the guy in front of you. But now they have Aaron Glenn, who I think is a great defensive mind. Certainly, an all-pro corner in his day as well. He's basically teaching these guys everything about the defense. And you have to know everything, why the offense is doing this, what the offense is trying to bait you into doing, all that sort of stuff. And Amani's talking about this like he's learning it for the first time, which is like, oh, this is like your rookie season in year 3 because you were so poorly coached in the first 2 years who just told you, just play football. Like that's not how you coach. So I'm willing to maybe give him a little bit of a pass, because I do think Aaron Glenn, again, really good coach. Aubrey Pleasant, the defensive backs coach, also very good coach. But everyone seems like they're in a rookie season right now in that secondary, and most of them actually are too. So it's made for a lot of errors, a lot of communication errors, a lot of mental errors. But overall, like, it is kind of a scrappy bunch too, because like I know we haven't started talking about him, but Jerry Jacobs, an undrafted rookie who, was barely on anyone's radar in training camp.
Was he the guy I was clowning? And then you were like, well, hold on, he's an undrafted rookie.
Probably.
Yeah.
But to be fair, it could be about 3 other guys too. Like AJ Parker was this team.
No, it was AJ Parker. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was it. I was like, that dude can't tackle. And you were like, chill.
Yes, that's right. Yes. Well, now he's on IR. So are you happy? Look what you did, Arif. No. But no, Jerry Jacobs, really physical corner who's really held his own. Like, he was the first person to really, and if you're just box score scouting, it won't look like it, but he kind of held Jamar Chase in check when it hadn't been done yet. And it's because he was just very physical with him at the line. And that's how he likes to win. It'll be interesting to see if, like, they've been so confident in him at times that he was shadowing Jamar Chase in that game as an undrafted rookie. And so I think they might put him on Jefferson in this game. We'll see.
Very different players. That'll be interesting.
Yeah. But then you go to nickel, and that's where the problems really show up, because as I mentioned, AJ Parker is on IR now, and they are just, I don't really understand what they're doing, because the choice they've made is to put Will Harris, their starting safety, at nickel, and that has not gone well. You may remember on Thanksgiving, if you're one of the few that were watching that game,
and yes,
didn't have a rooting interest. There was the very key 3rd and 4 play that every corner was playing 10 yards off. For some reason, the Lions had a pressure. They were sending pressure on that play, and so everyone else should have been playing, press coverage, because that ball was going to come out quickly, and he was 10 yards off. And Aaron Glenn defended him today and said, that's on me. I have to coach him better, because he doesn't play nickel. And my response to that is, why is he playing nickel? Exactly. You have a veteran nickel who's done it pretty well on your practice squad all season in Nickel Roby-Coleman. I don't know what he's doing on the team.
Wait, Nickel Roby-Coleman's on the practice squad?
He's on the practice. He's been he literally has not left the practice squad all season. You've been starting an undrafted rookie at nickel, and when that guy gets hurt, he still can't make it onto the active roster. I don't really get it at all, but I guess maybe they just want to see what they've got in a young guy like Will Harris. But to me, it doesn't make any sense, and it's certainly not making any sense on the field either.
Cool. I mean, that sucks, but cool.
Yeah.
I don't have much to add to that. That's pretty annoying. What are we getting from Tracy Walker?
He's actually playing quite well. I would say when he's on man-to-man coverage, it hasn't gone quite as well, but when he's allowed to just kind of stand back there and take in the whole play and just kind of react, I hate to say this, because Glover Quinn was one of my favorite players in almost Lions history, I could say. He gives me some Glover Quinn vibes. He's very instinctual. He's blown up a lot of plays. He's laid on a lot of huge hits too, which is something that really Glover didn't do a ton of. But he's been impressive, and it's a contract year for him. He seems to be in high spirits despite everything else that's happening around him. And so he's been really the one true bright spot of that secondary that's played well on a consistent basis. And I have to imagine contract negotiations either are underway or going to start to get underway, because that guy is not only really good on the field, but I think he's becoming a leader off it as well.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
All right.
That one is actually cool.
Yeah, that one actually is cool. Special teams. Why don't you regale me with the story of the Lions kicking unit and finish with, I guess, former Vikings kicker Riley Patterson? ?
Yeah. So as you may, this made some national headlines. The Lions finished training camp without a kicker. They cut both.
That was amazing.
And finally, they go out and get Austin Seibert, who was actually playing quite well for them most of the season. Then he got injured. I can't remember if it was hip or shoulder or something in the past 3 weeks. And so then the Lions decide, well, let's go play Ryan Santoso, the aforementioned Ryan Santoso. He makes a big kick in the Ravens game to put him up late, and then basically rides the practice squad the rest of the season until they need him again. Plays in that Pittsburgh game in the rain, in overtime, misses an extra point, misses a 40-some yard field goal, gets cut, and so the Lions go hunting again, just like they did at the beginning of the season. They get Riley Patterson, and they get Eldrick Rosas, who I have a really hard time not calling Danny Rojas, but
football is life.
Yes, exactly. And so I have to make sure I get this right because it's been such a whirlwind. I believe Rosas is on the practice squad. He's the more veteran of the two. He actually won, or he made the Pro Bowl with the Giants a few years back.
Yeah.
Patterson is a rookie. He is on the active roster because they poached him from the Patriots. And
he has to be. Yeah.
He has to be on the active roster. So the first week they elevated Rosas as the kicker. The second week they didn't. So Patterson made his first game appearance last week and really didn't have anything to do. So we really don't know what they have in that. But he's got a strong leg. They didn't put him on kickoffs, interestingly enough. And that might be important this week, obviously, with the Vikings and their good return game. Maybe they continue to have Jack Fox, their punter, do kickoffs, or maybe they say Rosas has a stronger leg. Let's have him be our kicker this week. I don't know. And basically the special teams coordinator is in I'm not going to tell you mode. So we'll see, I guess.
So we haven't seen much of Riley Patterson kicking.
Correct.
So the only information you have on him is that he somehow lost a kicking competition in Vikings camp.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like a great sign, does it?
I would argue that is not on an upward trajectory, no.
He was 2 for 2 on extra points last week. That's all the information we have.
That might be more extra points than he made in Vikings.
Oh, no. The Lions will tell you that they were actually very high on him in the draft process. I think they actually considered drafting him, but obviously didn't. So when they needed a kicker,
would have to be because there are veteran kickers. They would have to be high on him, even though I guess not that high because he's like their fourth option. But
right, true.
Like he was available from like day one, so they could have just gotten him. Okay, cool. So Jack Fox was an all-pro level punter last year. Mm-hmm. Is not this year. What's going on?
I think he's still doing fine. I would say, the high touchback numbers are maybe more of a reflection of the Gunners kind of losing sight of the ball. And they've had 2 or 3 where it's just like, a heel was on the goal line. And so, didn't establish in the field and whatnot. But, I think he's fine. He wasn't great on Thanksgiving, which might be why there's a perception that he's not as good. He did have that one go off his own teammate's helmet, and because there was a penalty on the return team, it didn't. That's not where it was downed. Which we had like a whole question and answer segment with the special teams coach. Apparently, when there's a penalty, it negates the first touch by the kicking team. So theoretically, you know that thing where like if the kicking team touches it, then the receiving team can grab it and not risk a fumble.
Yeah, like, exactly. The worst that you can do is wherever the kicking team is gain possession, wherever the kicking team touched it. Yes,
right.
So you're free to pick it up and all that.
But if there's a penalty on the receiving team, that goes out that first touch is negated. So
okay.
It makes you wonder.
I was very confused. Okay, that actually makes more sense because I was wondering if like there's some weird rule that it only counts on the arc down, but like why would that be in the
that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so like maybe only past the line of scrimmage, right? Because it was prior to the line of scrimmage, right?
That the penalty occurred?
No, the touch.
The touch was
I'm thinking, sorry, yeah.
It's all complicated, but
it's very weird.
The only reason I bring it up is because I'm still curious as to what kind of loopholes that opens up. Like if you see the return team jump off sides, does that mean you can just like continue to hit it downfield?
Yeah.
Because it's not where you touch it, apparently. I don't know.
This punt is a free play. We're going to down it at the 0 yard line. We're fine.
Exactly.
Just pick it up and carry it backwards. Yeah.
Anyways, I think Jack Fox is generally fine. He's still got a hell of a leg when I think he's maybe been a tad more inconsistent, but he's been known to still, boot a 70-yarder witut the addition.
Yeah, as long as it's 70, yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that's That's the cheating one, though.
The cheating one, yeah. His longest without it, I think, is 67.
There you go. So still pretty good.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else I should know about the Lions generally?
Nah. They're the Lions. So, I mean, what can I say? You want to talk about Dan Campbell a little bit? I don't.
Yeah. Actually, no. Tell me what you think about Dan Campbell.
So I think he's just about wore out his welcome with most people. I'm still mostly optimistic. I think the biggest question is whether most of the focus has been about him taking over play calling duties 3 weeks ago, because that seems to mean like, okay, Anthony Lynn's probably on the way out, which you made that decision halfway through the first season without any receivers, without a really good quarterback. Seems like maybe he was a little hectic. And I think maybe that's my biggest concern with Campbell in general, is that he feels on occasion very reactionary. Whether like maybe that can be a good thing. If your offense isn't moving, at least you're not being complacent. That's one thing that I think is it's a positive way to look at it. But it just feels like sometimes he goes with his gut when it comes to like fourth down decisions instead of really thinking it over. I do think there's a whiff of desperation with some of the things he's doing in terms of personnel, in terms of taking over play calling, in terms of the actual calls that he's playing on the field. And I think the thing that's really bothered fans the most is just the conservative shell he's gone into offensively, really since he's taken over. And part of that is all of it is really by design, right? They know they're not a very good team, so they're just going to try to run the ball a lot. They're going to try. His main goal on offense right now is to not lose the game.
Yes, to not look bad.
Yeah, to keep it close, and maybe the coin flip goes our way this week. And of course it hasn't yet, but this is the big thing that people are mad about, and I think rightfully so, is 3rd and 12, this team gives up. This team, the worst thing that can happen on that play is to attempt to pass, because he can either get sacked or he can throw an interception. To him, there isn't a third option where he actually converts the 3rd and 12 through the air. So instead, you're seeing draw play after draw play after draw play. No team runs it more on 3rd and long than the Lions do. And that's where teams really get frustrated, or fans really get frustrated. And teams know it's coming too. Like, it's no longer a secret. They converted a couple of those early on. It's no longer a secret. And I think teams know to expect it. And maybe they're setting them up. Maybe they're setting up the Vikings to like, oh, we're actually going to throw it on 3rd and 12. But
yeah, man, I would definitely keep that until week 13. For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're
That's
still, as we've established, the Lions are still technically in the playoff hunt. So
So for people who don't know, you can, and CBS tweeted this out, you can construct a very circuitous path for the Lions to make the playoffs.
A 62 game parlay or so.
Yeah, that is what CBS tweeted out. You asked on the podcast if all of those were actually necessary, or if they just picked every game and went for the maximum odds. And honestly, I hope it's the second. I hope that there are other paths because like you said, a 62 game parlay is fun until it isn't, right?
Right.
Like, so it's going to last one half of a week. But it is still technically possible for the Lions to make the playoffs, just as it is technically possible for the Vikings to win out and miss the playoffs. I believe the Lions won. If we take it as a given that the Lions win out and the Vikings win out for these two scenarios, I think the Lions one is less likely, but the Vikings one is thread the needle stuff too. So
right.
Very fun. I believe, so both aren't possible, right? Because the Vikings play the Lions this weekend.
True.
But it would have been fun if both happened. Like if the Lions made the playoffs and the Vikings didn't, and the Vikings swept the Lions 2-0. That would be beautiful. So score prediction time. The Vikings are good but bad. The Lions are bad but good? Question mark, but not. So what? I didn't even look at the spread. I'm sure it's a touchdown.
It is. I believe it's exactly a touchdown.
I feel like whoever, Cousin Sal on Bill Simmons' podcast,
there you go.
Nailed it. So what's your score prediction?
I haven't quite made it yet, but I guess I'll do it right now because, Who cares? Listen, the Lions haven't scored 20 points since week 1.
Jesus.
So I
That's
literally can't give them. Yeah, I don't think so. So I'll have to keep them below 20 just because why wouldn't I? Let's give them 17 and the Vikings 31. 31-17.
Cool. Wow, that's a multi-score game for the Vikings. That's bold.
Yeah, they don't do that often.
Week 3.
I mean, I know the Lions are they're going to try to keep this one low scoring, obviously, but I think
so will the Vikings. All right.
But there's no reason they should, right? Like they should air it out.
Well, I didn't say anything about
mismatch.
Should. Vikings don't care about should.
But they throw the ball a lot, right? Yeah. Not as much as they should, I guess.
Yeah. Where do they throw the ball? They throw it short of the sticks.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay.
All right. Well, I mean, probably the Vikings win, but you know how the Vikings are. You think they'll win, they'll lose. You think they'll lose, they'll win. Cool. Well, thanks for coming on. Is there anything you want to plug?
Just prideofdetroit.com obviously is where all my content is. If you like live streaming stuff, we do a lot of stuff on Twitch. Twitch.tv/prideofdetroit. We'll do. I still don't quite understand why people enjoy this, but we do a Madden simulation every Saturday morning at 10:30 Eastern on our Twitch channel, where I just, I set the lineups as accurately as I can predict them and watch the Madden numbers bounce off each other. And I guess that's the fun of it, is that Madden is incredibly stupid and does incredibly stupid things all the time, and I just get to sit and watch. So if that interests you, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. On our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/prideofdetroit.
All right. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks for having me, man.
All right, let's go to the mailbag. And the first question is from Kyle Slaby, who asks, when Dan Campbell gets his first win in Detroit this week, will the Vikings need to provide Martha Ford with a trophy for winning their Super Bowl?
I don't know that the Lions have a Super Bowl because one of the things about the Lions that I think is more tragic than most franchises that are like, ill-begotten, right? Or that they've been so bad for so long because they're like a historical franchise, right? They've been around forever. But they don't like have a rival, and so they can't have their Super Bowl, right? Like that's the issue. The Lions' Super Bowl is frustratingly and unfortunately the Super Bowl.
I've always viewed it as like their first win of the year turns into that because it tends to happen so late in the year.
That's right. Yeah, they could very well be playing meaningful football in January. Just to say they could win a game in January.
Ian Pauly asks, more likely way for the game to go. Losing on a blocked field goal as time expires, returned for a game-winning touchdown, or all three phases play a sound game and a comfortable win.
Well, it's definitely not that one, that last one.
No, because that would imply that you can trust the Vikings. And as I established repeatedly last episode, the Vikings are not to be trusted. Yeah,
okay. So I mean, the blocked field goal as time expires, return for a game-winning touchdown. That's so rare. That's so the chances are less than 1%, and yet still higher than all three phases play a sound game and a comfortable win. So I guess I'm going to have to go with that one. Let's add in the possibility that the blocked field goal is a blocked extra point attempt as well. So we'll add in blocked field goal and blocked extra point together. That's still less than, maybe even less than 0.1%. But still, I like that because it's either a game-winning touchdown or a game-winning 2-point return. Which is logged in the play-by-play as a defensive 2-point attempt, which is very funny because no, it's not.
Skull or whatever asks, with Pierce and Tomlinson back and Patrick Peterson potentially out against the Lions, is this a net gain or net loss for that side of the ball?
So Patrick Peterson, his status will be determined by whether or not he can have 2 negative tests 24 hours apart. He will immediately return to the lineup as soon as he gets that second test negative. And so he could be out. He might not be out. My guess is that he'll be back, but I guess if he's symptomatic, it's unlikely that he'll test. Zimmer was very cautious to say stuff like, who knows with these things, which, fair enough. But gaining Pearson Tomlinson and losing Patrick Peterson, I would argue for a run forward team like the Lions, that would be a net gain. I think if I were the Lions and I saw what the 49ers did and I was attempting to win the game, which is not like a guarantee that is a thing that you want if you're the Lions. I think that Dan Campbell wants it like badly. So I'm going to say that they do want to win the game. That they'll probably lean on the fact that they so their top receivers injured, their top running backs injured, but their backup running backs are like reasonably decent players, good players even, and their backup receivers are not, right? And so I would trust that and the fact that the offensive line is not garbage if I were them. And so I would probably try to run the ball if I were them. So I think that the fact that they'll likely be run forward and the fact that the passing game for the Lions is not spectacular anyway means that for this specific game, Pearson Tomlinson being back is going to be a net gain for like an average team with average like run pass ratios and general levels of talent across the board. Maybe not having a cornerback is worse than not having two defensive tackles, as weird as that sounds. But I mean, historically, that seems to be what tracks. So, but for the Lions specifically, I think having those two defensive tackles back would be good.
Ryan Menson says, first, to sympathize with James, always a good place to start. Last Sunday, I had to have dinner with my parents at 5. I told my wife that was great. We could leave at the 2-minute warning and not have to watch the Vikings give up the inevitable touchdown. This made her laugh and then a little sad because she knew it was true. Lo and behold, we get to my parents and my dad meets us outside to inform us that the game was tied. Now for the question. Given how much worse than anything else in history the 2-minute defense is, it doesn't just seem like a small sample size thing anymore. So what's going on? Is it coaching or game management? Out of shape pro athletes who get tired after 28 minutes? Please help me make sense of this insanity.
All right. So I will say that the small sample plays a role. There's no question about that. That the fact that it's only occurred, that we only have like 10 games to evaluate, like someone has to be the worst. And if everything was a coin flip, like if everybody's 2-minute defense was equal and it was just a coin flip or whatever, if it was random, and everyone had the same odds of giving up a touchdown in the final 2 minutes, some team, just by the way distribution works and probability works, would end up with something maybe not resembling what the Vikings are, but would end up with a catastrophically bad number. I think that variance plays a role with only 10 games and all of history to look at. But obviously, I also don't think that's the only thing at play. I think it's just one factor among many. I don't think the Vikings, like, blank slate, if we don't know anything about the Vikings, we're starting the season over again. But I know about the talent level of the Vikings. I don't think the Vikings going forward will continue to be the worst 2-minute defense in the NFL, but I also don't think they'll be a good one, despite the fact that they've been good against the pass for the other 56 minutes of the game, right? Or even 58, right? Because it's not like the 2-minute defense at the end of that game is like atrocious. It's not great. It's not like as bad as the end of the half. I don't think it has to do with how in shape or out of shape the players are. It's a lot of players that we've seen before that have not failed this catastrophically in the past, either with this team or with other teams. I think there is something about hurry up offenses, the way the defense just doesn't seem to have a way to get plays out there that are like, because in hurry up offenses, the defensive coordinator doesn't have time to radio into the green dot, essentially, what the play is going to be, and they don't have time to relay it. And so they have to go back to essentially their basics, right? They have to go back to what they've drilled in 2-minute drills for how they're going to approach each new formation as it pops up in the hurry up, sequence. And so they see, we know what the personnel is because they're in hurry up. It's going to be the same personnel. So we see this formation, we'll call this. We see this formation, we'll call this. We see this formation, we'll call this. That's informed by the film study they did in the previous week and so on and so forth. It could just be that the process for communicating that, not that I saw a lot of blown coverages, it just looks like bad play, but it could be that the process for communicating that is broken in some way, or the process for identifying what defense they need to call on the field is broken in some way. So it could be that though Mike Zimmer does a good job calling plays when he has time to call plays, he might do a poor job of coaching his linebackers into calling the right plays when it's their job to do it. So that could be the case. I wish you could pin it on a player, right? But like half these games don't even have Anthony Barr in it, and they're just as bad in 2 minutes. So it's not as if Anthony Barr is doing like this awful job. It's anybody who's got the helmet. Maybe the helmet's cursed. But there's something about that process that could be playing a role. There could be something about what your priorities are in a 2 minute versus your priorities are for the rest of the game. Because in a 2 minute, you should be a little bit more concerned about the sideline, a little bit less concerned about the middle of the field. And it could be that they haven't flipped that switch. It could be that offenses are much more likely to run particular route to route formations that the cornerbacks are weak to. Like, you know, it's a slow cornerback group, right? Like, who was it that said that wrote in last week at the mailbag? Can we call it the 4-6 Mafia? I mean, it's a slow cornerback group, and so it could just be that teams are structurally demanding that they test the speed of those corners. It could be a lot of things, right? And that's the problem, is that I can't tell you if it's one thing or another. It is an element of coaching, but it is not the element of coaching that we tend to think of when we think of defensive play calling. Game management is definitely playing a role. They do a very poor job of organizing how they use their timeouts, but that's not the only thing. You can't blame the play call necessarily anyway when you see Bashad Breeland just get burned deep by like Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Like, he's just slower than that guy. That's it. That's the answer. And sometimes you're just going to have to call plays where Bashad Breeland is going to be lined up against Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and your safety is like doubling over Devontae Adams because it's Devontae Adams, right? And so you just don't get that much help there. And that's just going to be what some plays are going to look like, because if you double both receivers, now you're in a spot against Robert Tonyan or something, right? Like there's always these trade-offs, and now you don't have an opportunity to generate extra pressure on a blitz or whatever, right? So yeah, I think that it's just the way that 2 minute offenses are organized could be designed to essentially structurally designed to poke at the specific things that the Vikings defensive personnel are weak against. But that's the closest thing I have to an answer.
Next question is going to be from Sports Boy, who asks, to what degree will Cousins' unwillingness to change, despite Zimmer's apparent begging, play a role in the Vikings' inevitable 13-10 loss this week?
Well, it's going to be a close game because the games are close. Crook throws it over the middle too many times, time expires. That's it.
That's just what we're going to end up doing.
Yeah, pretty simple.
Let's go to Wolves Back, who asks, what does Kirk Cousins need to do to secure the MVP?
So the problem is that the MVP is no longer a voted award. Like, somebody at Nickelodeon just decides who the 3 MVPs are that week. And I imagine that will continue into like the playoffs, right? Like that they will no longer allow the Mitch Trubisky scenario, which is a crime, by the way. They should be sued. So Kirk Cousins might actually just have to play well, which is unfortunate because he would be a very funny meme candidate for the MVP.
Next question is from Kenneth Allen, who asks, if Wongwu fails to break any more huge returns, like 30 to the 35 or less, does he deserve an all-pro nod? I'm seeing people argue for him to get the spot on two TDs alone, but I'm struggling with giving it to someone who's missed half the season. Do TDs really add that much more value than a whole season of good but not scoring returns?
So what's kind of interesting is that the Vikings actually do have like really good field position coming off of kickoff returns. It's not just the touchdowns that they've gotten from Wongwu. I think it's also that, for example, they wanted to kick it to Madison that one time. He's been able to get good field position. So they currently like lead the league right now in average starting field position after kickoff return. That might continue as teams are kind of scared of Wongwu, because either they'll kick the touchback and that brings them to 25, which isn't great, but is still 10th in the NFL. If your average starting field position after kickoff return is at the 25, that's like the 10th best. Teams are now attempting to force returns by kicking it short, and so most teams have a short return, have an average starting field position below the 25-yard mark or behind that 25-yard mark. And so that would still keep the Vikings up, or they'll attempt to kick it short. And if they kick it short, I mean, we saw that the Cordero Patterson effect, where Patterson wouldn't return a lot, but then the Vikings would lead the league in field position coming off of a kickoff return, because they would kick it short, and C.J. Ham would field it at the 10, and he would get it to the 28 or something like that. So it cut off the possibility of a touchdown, and it gave up a couple of extra yards in the touchback. So honestly, if teams alter their kickoff strategy because of Nwangwu, that alone would be a reason that you would want to give him that recognition. I know that it is tough to say he's only been around for half the year. It's tough to give an all-pro position to somebody. But if you think about it in terms of total impact on the team, you kind of, it doesn't matter when that occurs, right? So if Nwangwu had been there for the first half of the season and had not returned any kicks, if he was just a touchback guy, or if they'd only kicked touchbacks or only returned kicks to the 25, and then had the second half of the season that he did, he would be leading the league in expected points per kick return. He'd be leading the league in total expected points. And so how much of an impact does somebody get to have before you decide it's inevitable that they should get it, right? Because there's probably a case where if somebody has 3 kickoff return touchdowns in one game, and that was the only game they played, you're probably not going to give them the all-pro position. But I think that the threshold for that is not that many games before you decide, hey, he's been the most impactful kick returner in the league that we have right now, as per the evidence. And so you kind of have to give it to him. So the Vikings lead the league in starting field position. He currently leads the league by a healthy margin in expected points off of kick returns. If you take away the 2 kick returns that he's had that were touchdowns, and you only look at the kickoff returns aside from that, which is not the way that you should look at it, but it gives us a context for what that is. His expected points off of kickoff returns, obviously that drops pretty precipitously. It is still above the NFL average. I think it drops from 1.6 per return, which is nuts, to 0.14 per return, which is above the NFL average. As you would expect, the NFL average is 0. So I don't think that there's actually a reason to avoid it. Now, if Nwangwu is hurt at the very beginning of the game and he doesn't get to return a kickoff, right? Then you could say, well, he only played 5 games. I don't want to, and that's when you can have kind of that debate, because there's kickoff returners who've had 12 games, and so yeah, that one's a little bit tougher. But I think that if he plays 4 more games or whatever, I think that becomes kind of an irrelevant-ish argument. So if we take a look at everybody who's had at least 5 returns, I want to get rid of the people that block the kickoff and get credited for a kickoff return at the 35-yard line, or whatever. If we take a look at that in terms of total EPA per return on non-touchdowns, so we get rid of the people with touchdowns, Nwangwu would rank just off of non-touchdown kick returns 16th in the league, out of the 47 players that have had at least 5 kick returns. That's impressive, right? And then you add in the fact that, of course, he has 2 touchdowns. So if he returns, say, 1.5 per game might be a decent average. Let's say it's 1 per game to minimize his impact. How many games left in the Viking season? 5, right? So if he has 5 more returns of 0.14, and you add that to his current total EPA of 12.86, then you've got 13.56 off of 13 returns, which is small, but there's some of the leading kickoff returners have something like 13. 1.04 per kickoff return. That would still lead the league. So yeah, I think you'd still give it to him so long as he has enough to qualify for whatever kind of sample size cutoff you want to use, because it's unlikely that he'll dip below that unless he fumbles, in which case then we can have a really good conversation about kind of what kickoff value is. But if he has 2 per game, right, of at 0.14 per return, times 5, Then you get to add that to the 12.86 he's gotten. And so then that would be 18 returns. That'd be 0.79 per return. I mean, that's nuts how good that is. It would still lead the league. So yeah, I think actually he's got a pretty good case for being the All-Pro kick returner based off of his limited sample size. He just has to not screw it up and return a couple more so that he can get that sample size argument.
All right, also from Kenneth Allen, he asks, what is the worst part of December? The weather, the terrible Christmas music, or the inevitable Vikings loss on Christmas or Christmas Eve? Yes, I know they don't play on Christmas or Christmas Eve this season, but last year's Christmas Day loss was bad enough to count for multiple years.
Man, some hangups about Christmas, huh? The worst part about December. I mean, I love December, and maybe because I spend half of it in another state, but I think it's got to be the inevitable Vikings loss. That's got to be the worst part. The weather like sucks, but I've gotten very accustomed to it / into it. I don't know. Like I like walking around Vermont in its stupid winter weather, so I can't get that out of my head, even though I am spending half my time like in another state shoveling my own driveway and stuff like that. So that does suck, but like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's got to be the Vikings loss. The Christmas music thing, I don't like watch cable television, so I miss a lot of it. I don't go to stores that much anymore. I buy most of my stuff online, so I miss a lot of it. So the terrible Christmas music doesn't impact me that much. It's got to be the loss on Christmas or Christmas Eve.
Yeah, I've never truly been huge into Christmas, but I still hear the music more often than I'd care to. So I don't know about the worst thing. I tend to think it's more about it's either the weather or seeing Alvin Kamara lined up on the other side of the ball. Yeah. I think is kind of where I'm at. So, but it's not like it's February. To me, February is much worse than December. It used to be December was like bad, but like February to me is always worse.
The weather is worse in February, like universally now.
Yeah, so it used to be somewhat like it evened out, but that hasn't been that way for 10 years at least. Jeremy Allen asks, can you convince me the Vikings will play a complete game, win by 2 TDs, and look like a team that's peaking at just the right time? No. Beef Brewski asks, Arif, one of the conclusions I reached while reading your article on Cousins is that he's probably a fine quarterback for a team with an elite defense. So let's play a little imagination game. What would the Vikings record be if they had an elite defense? Also, how far is this team from having an elite defense?
The Vikings might be undefeated, right? I mean, they haven't had an elite defense, and they've only lost by 1 score in games. They would definitely be undefeated. Like I can't think of a way out of that. So there's that. How far away are they from having an elite defense? Pretty far away, man. I don't know. How many quarterbacks would be undefeated with an elite defense? Man, Buffalo kind of has one, and they're not undefeated. So you gotta. I mean, and Josh Allen is not playing at the level he was last year, but he's playing pretty well for the most part, aside from like 2 games. You could say a lot of I mean, like we saw Blake Bortles get to the AFC Championship, and we saw Case Keenum, but he was actually his stats were fine, right? Like he was not playing well, but the die rolled in his direction a little too many times. But yeah, when we saw Blake Bortles with an elite defense get to the AFC Championship game, so you just kind of assume that that quarterbacks with an elite defense will tend to look good. People remember Trent Dilfer. People remember Peyton Manning's 2nd Super Bowl. But honestly, like it takes some quarterbacks are better positioned to do something with that. Bortles was not, which is the most interesting part, because if you throw a bunch of picks and you have an elite defense, you are screwing over your defense and just creating points. The thing about the Jaguars defense that year, though, was one of the ways that they were elite was in turnover production. So they kind of made up for it especially with quarterback fumbles was something that they were tremendous at. It's one of the reasons the Vikings traded for Yannick Ngakoue. And those are among, if not the most valuable, aside from like pick sixes directly, are probably the most valuable process by which to gain a turnover. And so they made up for it. But most elite defenses don't produce a bunch of quarterback fumbles. They stop points, produce punts, produce picks, and stuff like that. And so you got to be a quarterback that tends to avoid turnovers. So not every quarterback can do that. And obviously the elite quarterbacks would look better with an elite defense. But I would say that the Vikings would currently be undefeated, and we'd actually be talking about how well Kirk Cousins is playing, right? Because he's thrown 3 interceptions. He's thrown 27 or something touchdowns. Statistically, his baseline statistics look pretty good. His win probability doesn't look as good as that, but that would change as he is throwing in different, because win probability is a situation dependent stat, would change as the situations he's throwing in would change. And so his win probability wouldn't look good because he's not driving wins, but he wouldn't have the negatives in win probability that he's generated because he wouldn't have to lead so many 2-minute drives. And so if you take Kirk Cousins out of the situation he performs worst in, which is play action is not a threat, even though the Vikings not play action that much this year, play action is not a threat, and he has to be aware of situational football in the 2-minute drill, then he's going to look phenomenal. He'd be getting MVP talk, right? And we might not even realize that he is benefiting from the fact that he doesn't have to deal with these high pressure situations. So that would be very curious, right? That you could get rid of some of the picks that he throws, which again, he's only thrown 3, but some of the turnover worthy plays that he throws, because he no longer is pressed to throw some of these turnovers in high leverage situations.
Doug Nasby has 2 quick questions. First, are there any whispers of Irv Smith returning this year? And do you think Kirk would drop the F-bomb in a Super Bowl pregame speech?
No to both. I haven't seen anything that would indicate that Irv Smith would return. That would be tremendous, I think, that because of just the amount of talent that the Vikings have at skill position, being able to get him back. And then the Vikings' depth at tight end has turned out to be pretty good. Now, it wasn't when Irv Smith went down. They've gone out and acquired a bunch of people. The most expensive one has not turned out, right? Chris Herndon cost a 4th-round pick. So that hasn't. But Luke Stalker is not bad for what it took to get him. Ben Ellefson, who's on IR right now, is not bad. I hate saying that. Is not bad. I'm just going to pretend he didn't go to NDSU. Ben Ellefson is not bad. And so they've got some tight end depth that they didn't have at the beginning of the season that is working out for them. And so Irv Smith coming back would mean that they've got we don't actually know that Irv Smith is confirmed good, but some probably good players at a bunch of positions. So, you've got a confirmed good player in Dalvin Cook, which right now you don't because of the shoulder injuries, plural, but they might even have him back next week after the Steelers game, which is occurring on Thursday. But yeah, you've got Dalvin Cook who's a high-level back. You've got 2 really high-level receivers, and then you've got probably a good tight end, and Tyler Conklin isn't bad either. So that would be very exciting. That'd be very difficult to defend. And, of course, you've got Captain Ham.
Who is a captain for some reason. Sorry, we were talking before the show, and Arif misread something, and it's still funny to me.
Yeah. That is not James's opinion. James's opinion is that Captain Ham should have always been a captain.
He's always been a captain in my heart. So we're just going to go from there. Logan asks, the 2022 Vikings will have the best quarterback and tight end pair in Carson Wentz and Taysom Hill. Who does Arif start at quarterback, and who is at tight end?
The best quarterback tight end pair in Carson Wentz and Taysom Hill. Don't know who's playing what. No, I mean, you got to start Taysom Hill at quarterback, right? You can't put him in a critical position like quarterback.
Listen. I missed most of the game tonight, and from the
Taysom Hill was awful. He threw 4 picks, I think. It might have been 5. He threw 4 picks, and he should have thrown 6. It was terrible.
But my fantasy team shows that he did fairly well, so I'm conflicted.
I mean, same with Jalen Hurts, right?
The fact I even like started Taysom Hill in this one league is stupid. It's like I didn't. My quarterback went out, and then like I picked up Cam Newton for fun, and Cam Newton was fun for like 2 weeks, and I'm like, oh, I have nobody left to. It's like I think I had like Mike White as the quarterback there. I was like, yeah,
yes, White Mike.
We're not doing White Mike here. So, hey, Taysom Hill is probably going to start. Let's roll with that. I got 20 points off it, but I was like, I don't understand how or why. So we're just going to go with it.
He threw 4 picks, one of which was a pick 6. Should have thrown 2 more. Like Trevon Diggs should have had 2 picks and only had 1. Only had 1.
That is a very expensive contract for what they have.
Yeah, and then I think Taysom Hill only threw 1 touchdown, I want to say. And the touchdown he threw was a catch and it was 1 touchdown. No, he threw 2. But the final touchdown he threw was just a catch and run, like it was 70 yards of after catch from Deontay Harris. And so it's not like it shows up in his stats, but he still, even with 2 touchdowns, he ends up with a 44 passer rating. Like it was gross. I mean, his finger is injured, so it's not the level of play that you would expect him to have overall. I mean, we've seen what Russell Wilson looks like with an injured finger, but also like he's clearly not like a quarterback, right? Anyway, he's our quarterback in this scenario.
Next question is going to be from Raul, who asks, so which premier college coach do you want coaching the Vikings next year?
Ed Orgeron saying Skull Vikes may be too hard to pass up.
Yes.
That would be funny.
Ed Orgeron. That
would be good.
I mean, Brian Kelly can be bought. So.
I was about to say Brian Kelly's available. He just signed a contract with LSU, but he's available, and he'll sound Minnesotan in a heartbeat. Just give him a second.
Oh my God, that is just an atrocious accent that borders on not Yosemite Sam, but it borders on Foghorn Leghorn. Like it's just bad.
Mike Renner tweeted out 2 videos of him saying the word family, one while in Indiana and one while at LSU, and it's just, come on, man. The pandering is awful. But yeah, which college coach? Man, I mean, which college coach would cause like some hilarious shenanigans? I mean, Mike Leach, obviously, but I don't want to enable him. Steve Spurrier is no longer a college coach, but that would rule, even though he was not that good in the NFL. It would still rule. Current college coaches, I mean, I guess not Lincoln Riley. I mean, it doesn't matter that he's at USC if I just get to pick whoever, but like, it just doesn't seem right.
I don't know. Yeah, is Bobby Petrino still a coach somewhere?
Oh, I think he is. And I don't know that you would call him a premier college coach.
He does have quote unquote pro experience.
He does. He is the head coach at Missouri State University. That couldn't happen to a better guy. He's in the mix for an open FBS coaching job, apparently. Nick Saban. Why not? Give him another shot.
Nope. It's got to be Petrino. He needs to ride off into the sunset on that motorcycle with the neck brace on. With
the neck brace.
With the neck brace. With or without the passenger.
That may or may not have been there.
Yes, exactly. Such a fun insurance form to fill out. Damian Barrett asks, first versus second in the Hell League this week. What kicking calamity can we expect to swing the matchup?
Man, we're like almost running out of kicking calamities, right? Like the only thing that would, so a kick 6 obviously would rule, but I don't think currently that I don't think there's a way to put that in the points, right? Like there's no.
It still counts. It still counts as a miss. Like yeah. It still counts. It still counts as a miss, as a mixed extra point. So,
but there's no system that like also docks the kicker 6 points.
No,
in addition to the docking by the miss. Yeah,
sadly, no.
Yeah, so that's a problem. Can you manually just enter in whatever points you want? So you can just do that week.
I have the ability to. I have God mode, yes, okay. But I've only used it on people who have forgotten the rules. So
Right. Yeah, no, I'm just thinking like that would be tough because I want a system to just do it. Um, yeah, the thing that bothers me, I wish I want them to change the rule. I guess it's like technically it's out of bounds or something like that, so maybe not. But I think balls that doink back into the field of play should be returnable. That's my take, and I think a lot of people agree. I think that as soon as it hits the field, it's not. But I think that you can catch a doinked ball and return it. That's a great rule I think that they should implement, and that would be phenomenal for the Hell League because then you can subtract the return yardage from the kicker. And it's amazing, right? Because it might produce a better result for the defense than a normal missed kick, right? Because they could return the kick 20 yards on a 50-yard field goal, and that would mean that they net gained 30. If he had never touched the ball on the return, they'd get the ball, 48 or at the 38 or whatever. But instead, they're at the 20. And so that's 18 yards that you've gained, but the kicker still loses 20 yards. I love that.
Here's my thought. Kick gets blocked, starts to be returned. The returner then fumbles the ball, and the other team picks it up and runs it in.
That's great. I like that. The kicker's still docked for it. That's great too.
Yes.
Okay. I like that.
You both won and lost.
So here's kick. So the kick misses, and it's a returnable kick. So it's like a 67-yard attempt. And the returner attempts to return it. The returner fumbles. The kicker scoops up the fumble and attempts to run it, and himself fumbles. That because then he gets the points for the miss and the points for the fumble. I'd love that.
Nolan Kaler, the other side of this matchup, asks, for James's theology corner, what is the ecumenical significance of someone conquering Hell League? Also, in keeping with the linear championship theme, do I get membership in the Norse Code Hall of Fame if I beat Damian Barrett this week? I think whoever wins the Hell League gets to be put into the Norse Code Hall of Fame. Like that is a given.
That's a lot. I think that they get automatic nomination and auto bid, but I don't know if you just put him in, right? Because here's the problem: it creates an opportunity for Don from Ohio to enter the Hall of Fame.
Have you seen how badly he's doing in the Hell League? No.
I mean, in theory.
In theory, fine. I'm confident of his loss. He's not doing. I don't think he's doing
the inaugural Hell League then, right? Because we keep doing the Hell League, and by if I mean when we keep doing the Hell League.
Yes. Ooh, I have news on this, by the way.
Oh,
in the show notes and in the actual notes on your podcast reader, or whatever, there is a link that is going to be provided. That is your access to actually view what the Hell League is, the teams, the matchup, and everything. I set it up so it's a public league. People can look at it.
Oh,
so
great.
You can go in and take a look at just how insane these matchups are. If you so desire, check it out. It's a Yahoo Fantasy link that we'll have in the show notes and over at the Norseman. So this league is so beautiful and perfect.
You should mint the league as an NFT.
Oh my God. Next question.
So, and now anytime anybody references anything as art, my brain is so broken that I'm just like, yeah, it's got to be an NFT.
Yeah. Michael asks, question for Norse Code. Realizing Arif may have to get the VitaMix through OTAs and training camp first. In the draft order of kitchen tools, what is the positional value of a VitaMix? Are we talking a franchise quarterback, shutdown corner, edge rusher, or more like a move tight end?
All right, so I love my VitaMix. The reason it's one of the last tools we acquired is because it is a little bit less valuable. We already have a food processor. We already have an immersion blender. The VitaMix is absolutely a luxury, which, by the way, James, when you were arguing that I'm bougie, A much better argument than you accepted the food delivery would have been you bought a Vitamix. But in my defense, it was on sale. It was an enormous sale by like crazy, like 60% off. Like, we had to do it, right? I mean, that's just
you still got bougie cookies, which was my biggest problem.
No, the cookies were fine.
I wasn't gonna be shaming you for something that I probably would have done if I was more financially stable or could have used it.
You would not get delivery cookies if it was like late at night, no place is open, and you feel like dessert, and it's the cookies are right there, man. Plus, if they screw it up, which they will because they're in an altered state, because again, they're like their clientele. It's like when you order from GoPuff and the guy is like surprisingly casual during the drop off. It's like that. So there's a good chance you'll get a free cookie because they'll forget something. You would never get a delivery cookie.
I realize this is gonna sound strange considering my size, but I'm really just not that big into sweets. It's just not my thing.
Well, yeah, but that's just a preference thing, right? Like that doesn't make the cookies bougie. That makes you not that into cookies. Like that's totally different.
No, I can have like a problem with this regardless of my, life choice involving, sweets. I can still think that it's hilarious that you were eating bougie cookies.
It's just food delivery. And the cookies arrive warm. That's the most magical part. They're still gooey.
How expensive was the cookie again?
Okay, so the 6 box of the regular cookies was $11, which is almost $2 a cookie. That's a lot. But the premier cookies, which they've got a category of cookies that are the second tier of cookies, those are bigger. Also, first of all, they're bigger, but they are $3.50 a cookie.
You said they were $3.50?
Yes, I did.
So was this like a 6-story like dinosaur from the Mesozoic era that was selling you these?
No, we're trying to keep that particular dinosaur away. The cookie wards the dinosaur.
Yeah, about that. So people can subscribe to The Athletic by going to what address again? To help support your bougie cookie addiction?
Okay, the bougie thing is the Vitamix. The cookie is just food delivery. It's just food delivery. All food delivery is overpriced. That's how they make money. Anyways, the positional value of the Vitamix. I think the quarterback is probably the chef's knife. The positional value of the Vitamix, you can manufacture a lot of things that a blender can do. Now, the Vitamix is unique in how well it blends. Like it's difficult to describe if you're not super into cooking. I'm sure Dusty could do like a really good job of explaining why a VitaPrep is really good from the commercial side. But they last forever and have an insane high-powered motor, and they just do better than other blenders. That is kind of like having George Kittle. Like tight ends are not that valuable. George Kittle is. You can manufacture a lot of production maybe around not having a tight end. You can't exactly do what George Kittle does. And so that's kind of where I think I am with the Vitamix. So I think the chef's knife, or just your primary kitchen knife, is your quarterback. And then kind of going on down from there, I think an Instant Pot or some kind of pressure cooker, or even just a slow cooker, some sort of independent pot cooker that's independent from your stove, is probably kind of high up on the list. People will remember me just taking a crock pot to training camp, which ruled. I can't express enough how awesome that was. I think the sous vide cooker, the immersion cooker, I guess, it's a new position. It's kind of like a joker, kind of like an H-back tight end that can also run the ball, kind of like a Percy Harvin. It's a new position, but it's turned out to be pretty valuable. But that is also a tool that if you just kind of cook well in all of your other respects, don't need it. But it is a little bit more portable. So there's some things that other things can't do. You can replace a lot of what it does. So I would need a full list of kitchen appliances to rank by like positional value. But I think in terms of the stuff that we have, if we kind of avoid like essentials like a stove and a fridge, that that's kind of where I am on my thoughts about that. I think an immersion blender, by the way, is super underrated. Those things rule.
Don from Ohio asks, James and Arif's Christmas etiquette corner. Every year, my wife and I give each other a Christmas gift 1 week early. There is no rhyme or reason for this outside of not being patient. Is this a no-no?
It's not a no-no. It's first, it's adorable. That's very cute that you two do that. Second, no, that rules. I like that. I mean, maybe it's because you're impatient. I don't know. It sounds like part of it's also because now it's a tradition. So that's awesome. I like it. I like Christmas traditions, generally speaking, unless it's we decorate too early. That, like, giving a Christmas gift during the Christmas season, which this uncontrovertibly is, not a problem. Celebrating Christmas during Thanksgiving, yeah, I've got a problem. During Halloween, huge problem.
Yeah, I'm going to have to defer to Arif on this. I should never be in a situation where people ask me relationship advice. This
is an etiquette.
Oh, this is an etiquette? Still, like, this still borders on that, and I've only experienced failure. So don't... It turns in the George Costanza situation of, well, if I do it, then it immediately, if all of my base
what is your
instincts
instinct
are wrong,
here? So we'll just take the opposite. What's your instinct here?
My instinct is to wait. So clearly what you should be doing is what you're doing. So
perfect.
Do that. You'll be fine. And I'll, deal with having to figure out opposite day stuff for me. Don also asks, what's the best 80s Christmas song and what's the worst? We're not going to go over what I think is the actual worst. And instead, I'm going to go with, because Arif and I had a conversation about that earlier. I still don't like Last Christmas. I'll never like Last Christmas. It does not work for me.
I don't hate it. My only issue with Last Christmas is how it doesn't feel like it'll get stuck in your head when you listen to it. Like it doesn't seem to have the catchiness that it would do that. And then it absolutely does. Like that's the problem with Last Christmas. But yeah, I think the worst one is Do They Know It's Christmas? That first of all, it just sucks.
You don't like being reminded of starving children during the holiday season?
Well, so that's like second and third, I think. But I think first, as a song, it's bad. It's just a bad song. Second, it's like kind of racist. But third, I also just don't like to be reminded of starving children during Christmas in a song. Like, we should probably do goodwill and stuff like that. Wow, that's a weird phrase. We should do goodwill. That's my stance. Strong stance. We should probably do goodwill and stuff like that. My God,
there's a lot to unpack here. If anybody wanted to edit that out,
we don't have any listeners that would do that.
No, never once. Yeah, I don't even know where to go from there. Let's go to the final question, which is from Tommy Gunn, who asks. So before I read this question aloud, I would just like to state that I was reminded of this by a friend who then put me on a bit of a re-listening, rewatching thing. And Norse Code episodes 330, 331, and 332 are the high watermark for the passive-aggressive corner. There is some amazing stuff in there that is there's Arif coming home and all his dishes from his all of his dirty dishes are in his bed, and he
wait, that was in that stretch. Okay, you're right. That's an elite run.
This is an elite run. There's a conversation about sour cream containers and what to do with them because the wife is pregnant and forgets that that she keeps buying them or whatever. There's my story about a roommate who was smoking, who was pissed off at me because I had complained about her cigarette butts outside. So she just started smoking in the bathroom and blowing the smoke into my towel that I was using from the morning. There's some classic stuff in here. in episodes 330, 331, and 332. Possibly 333. I'd have to check that. But like, we had a run there of really top content. Which brings me back to Tommy Gunn's question. For Arif's open sour cream marriage corner, because you thought it was open marriage corner and not open sour cream.
Well, okay. First of all, when you said the question, you said the full thing before I could react. So I didn't make that misstep off the gate. I just said, hey, when I was first reading this question, my first instinct or I think I wasn't even reading it, I just heard it from you. When you were first reading the question, my first instinct was open marriage corner. And I was like, wow, okay, we're going in directions. But then you continued, right? Open sour cream marriage corner. I was like, oh, okay. So it's not like I misheard you. It's that my mind was making conclusions before you had finished the phrase. I just want to be clear.
Yeah. So for Arif's open sour cream marriage corner, in order to satisfy all parties, we have resorted to a 5-pound sour cream container. This leaves very little room in the fridge. However, how should we allot the remaining space, and why did you choose to get rid of her Coke Zero?
Oh, boy.
Now, let's be clear. Neither of us have suggested this. We both know this because she wrote into the show like the week after this to complain about your email.
Yeah, which, by the way, good move on her part. That's fantastic. We highly encourage this. Which I honestly, I had to re-listen to that portion of the show for how I answered. And I know that she responded, and I forgot what her response was, but it certainly seemed much more reasonable, if I remember correctly.
It was pregnancy brain. It was pregnancy
that was
brain.
It. Yeah. Yeah, and it was just like, oh, come on, Tommy. The compromise of the 5-pound sour cream container is amazing. Getting rid of the Coke, because I personally hate Coke Zero, I guess. So but like, I don't get rid of Chelsea's Coke Zero. That seems mean. I don't know, man. I don't know how to allot the remaining space of your fridge. What do you put in your fridge? French's mustard? Get rid of that. But I don't know what else is in. How can I tell you what to get rid of in your fridge?
My question is, was there not a smaller size? Like, there was no 2 or a 3-pounder? You had to go straight to 5?
Well, I assume that the reason that they got the 5-pounder is because the 5-pound is unignorable, right? It imposes itself upon you every time you open the fridge. You cannot forget that even open container of sour cream if it's a 5-pound container.
It is the CJ Ham of sour cream containers. You're right.
Yeah, no, for sure. So the captaincy of this container can't be questioned. That's why you don't get the 3-pound or the 2-pound. That's the compromise. So yeah, the question then is like, what do you do with the remaining space in your fridge? I don't know how you use your fridge. If you store ingredients that you use to cook with later, that's one thing. But if you use it to store like leftovers, that's another thing. If it's mostly like condiments and drinks and other kind of, this or that other things, that's a different thing. So I don't know how your fridge operates. So many people use fridges in different ways. So I'd say use the freezer and get some frozen meals. I don't know, man. This sour cream container thing has really had quite the butterfly effect on the rest of your eating habits.
Here's my question. Is it too big to put in like a dorm fridge? Because you could have the sour cream fridge.
That sounded ridiculous too, but I was thinking that you could get a mini fridge for the sour cream.
Yeah, you could have.
Okay, we were on the same page.
Yeah, you could have the sour cream fridge, which is just
that is an expensive resolution to this question.
Well, you're already getting $5. You're already getting 5-pound containers.
In the long run, that saves money though, because you're buying sour cream in bulk. So that's not really that.
Well, do you go through enough of that?
But there's 2 ways that you're saving money. One, you're not constantly buying sour cream because you have open containers of sour cream and you forget about it because you're not forgetting about it anymore. 2, you clearly go through enough sour cream that you keep on buying new. So you will go through the 5-pound sour cream. So I think you are saving money per unit of sour cream. So that's the opposite. The mini fridge, that's an investment. Like presumably you're not going to invest in the highest quality mini fridge for your sour cream because like what features do you need? But
I mean, some people have a beer fridge in their garage. What you could just, have
The
a
sour cream fridge.
You have the sour
Can you
cream
imagine
fridge.
you've got company over and like you're cooking with your friends or whatever. And you're like, oh, can you get the sour cream? They're like, oh, I can't find it in the fridge. You're like, oh, it's in the sour cream fridge. That's in the garage.
Just your friends just looking at it like, I'm sorry.
Okay, look,
what?
So we had a sour cream fight. I won't get into the details. We asked some podcasters how to resolve it. Neither of them gave this advice, but we ended up concluding that we should just get enormous tubs of sour cream. But then, of course, it took up too much space in our fridge, obviously. So we got a new fridge. Like,
why are you guys getting your coats? I don't understand.
Actually, the mini fridge should just be Coke Zero and sour cream.
In harmony. Forever.
Yeah, in harmony. Yeah.
And ever. All right, that's going to be the end of this episode of Norse Code. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. Arif, what do you have to plug?
I've got a couple of pieces up. One is about Kirk Cousins that has like 80 comments at this point. And that's just like Kirk Cousins is not an elite quarterback, and that's kind of annoying. is the whole piece. So that's over at The Athletic. The other piece I have at The Athletic, besides like a mock draft breakdown of a cornerback that Dane Brugler drafted in his mock draft 1.0, is a piece about how there don't seem to be any good teams in the NFL at the moment. So check that out. The comments don't really like that piece. I'll just say I don't write the headline. I don't know why there are no good teams. And the headline was why there are no good teams. And I just pointed out that there aren't any. So read that piece. I kind of like that piece, but it didn't go in the direction that I think a lot of people expected. So it didn't really excite a ton of people, but some people did enjoy it. So check that out over at The Athletic, theathletic.com/author/Arif Hassan. My health insurance relies on my continued employment at The Athletic. So please subscribe.
Wow. I don't.
I'm not like particularly sick at the moment. I just felt like I needed that plea in there.
I don't think you've ever included that in the. I am genuinely stunned. Well, it's the holiday season, folks. So please,
I could slip and fall at any time.
And let's be honest, we've seen the video of me doing this. So,
right.
So to make sure I have health insurance, I am Well, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Norse Code. Again, over on Patreon on Sunday, we're doing the watch along. Check it out. Be over Zoom. We'll have some bingo cards, and hopefully then I won't be as flustered as I am right now by this ridiculousness.
I mean, given your intense love of bingo, I think that you'll be laser focused on the bingo.
Oh my god, I hate
you chose bingo. This
I did because I did because we did it before and it was fun. And
wait, the bingo was fun?
I didn't participate. Remember, I just made the cards. So
that's the most participating.
I just stop, Mr. Bougie Cookie. I don't care. If your cookie costs $3.50, then you've got other problems.
First of all, it was a 2-for-1 deal by accident. Second,
I am ending this show. Stop now. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Norse Code. Patreon.com/Norse Code. Bonus stuff, including the bonus episode and all that. For Arif, who clearly needs his health insurance, my name is James. Thank you guys so much for listening. And please remember, case cookus. And we will be back next week.
Norse Code is the largest and only division of Norse Code LLC. You can find Norse Code on the Daily Norseman, SB Nation's Vikings blog at dailynorseman.com. You can also find it on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever fine podcasts are aggregated. Our Vikings blogger extraordinaire and generally useful human is Arif Hassan, and he can be found on Twitter at Arif Hassan NFL. I am your producer and co-host, and my name is James Pagashnik. You can find me at the show's official Twitter feed at NorseCodeDN. If you'd like to donate a few bucks to the show, you can make your one-time donation at paypal.me/NorseCode, or a recurring monthly contribution can be made by visiting patreon.com/NorseCode. Any questions or comments that won't fit in a tweet can also be sent to